Okay, in this video I'm going to go over how to solve a single radical equation. And you'll notice that in this particular example, the radical, there's only one radical in the equation, and there's an x value underneath in the radicand rather, under the sign. So what we need to do is basically isolate that x so we can figure out what number would go in there to make this a true statement. So clearly the issue here is the radical sign itself, and this particular one is a square root. So let's see what we can do. Okay, whenever I have a radical equation, I always start by trying to isolate the radical. Now, what does that mean, basically, isolate the radical? You want the radical to be by itself on one side of the equation, on one side of the equal sign. So in this particular case, it's pretty easy. We're just going to add 5 to both sides. And we're going to end up with the square root of x plus 1 equal to 13. Now look what we've done. We've isolated the radical by itself, and then you have to ask yourself, how can I get rid of the radical sign or the square root? Okay, so if I've got the square root of 1, x plus 1, how would you get rid of that? Well, the opposite of square rooting, if you want to call it that, is to square something. So let's go ahead and square that. And of course, if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other side as well. Now, what squaring a square root does is makes it disappear, and you end up with x plus 1. And then you have 13 squared, which is 169. Okay, now what do? It's pretty easy. We just go ahead and subtract 1 from both sides, and you end up with x is equal to 168. Now, I'm always very careful here, and I want to make sure that that number works. So I'm going to actually do a quick check to see if 168 will make this statement true. So let's go ahead and do that. So the check would be this. I'm going to put 168 in where the x is. Plus 1 minus 5 is equal to 8. You get 168 plus 1, which is the square root of 169 minus 5. The square root of 169 is 13. Minus 5 is 8, and you can see that 8 is equal to 8, and the answer checks out. All right, so let's just go through the steps briefly again. Whenever you have a single radical in your equation, the first thing you want to do is isolate the radical and get it by itself. And then you're going to look at the index here. Notice that we said this was a square root. And if it's a square root, then you want to square the problem. If it's a cube root, you want to cube the problem, etc., etc. Fourth root, you want to do the fourth power, etc., etc. So that's something you might want to consider. I'll do a couple more of these videos later on, but I think I'll end it here. So isolate the radical. Go ahead and raise the radical to whatever power the index is, and then solve from that point. Always make sure to check at the very end to see that your answer works, because some of the answers will work and some won't, and you need to do that. And I'll show some examples of that later on. Good luck to you.